What's up guys, Seth Feider here, checking in for the Bass University. I'm gonna talk about cold water jerkbait fishing. We're in the late fall, early winter transition period. Awesome time to fish a jerkbait. A jerkbait plays year round, but this time of year, those cold water periods is when a jerkbait really shines. It's an excellent warm water bait as well. But this is like the time of year, this in the early spring is when jerkbaits, I mean, you'll win tournaments on them this time of year. I think we're dealing with, we're high 40s on the water right now, 48, 49, I think. Awesome time of year to jerkbait. And this time of year, your presentations get really limited. You know, there's, a lot of them stuff you're doing in the summer and spring, those techniques aren't working anymore. And a lot of guys struggle when it gets cold, but there's a few techniques you really need to know this time of year, and one of them is jerkbait fishing. We'll go over all that today, how I fish the bait and whatnot, but running through my setup, first off we're starting with a Rapala Shadow Rap. It's a suspending jerkbait, but it does have a very slow sink to it, almost neutrally buoyant, but we'll talk about that later. That's one thing I really like about this bait. It is a 3-hook model. That's another thing I really like. When you get in this cold water period and you're fishing that bait really slow, a lot of fish will just kind of come up and kiss it, and I think you miss a few fish if you're running just a 2-hook model jerkbait. So that's something I really like about it. And the depth I can get out of this bait's really key this time of year. The fish are suspending a little deeper and this bait gets down to them. But rod and reel, this is actually it's a Daiwa Tatula Elite. This is actually a rod I personally designed for jerkbait fishing. It's 6'9". That size is really key, especially if you're gonna jerkbait fish all day, which is something I do a lot this time of year. If you're gonna have that rod in your hand all day and you're using anything 7 foot or above, it's gonna wear you out. Plus you're hitting the water when you're jerking or hitting the side of the boat. So that little shorter rod cuts down on fatigue when you're jerking all day, and puts a little better action on the bait too, I feel like. Slow gear ratio reel. It's an old Daiwa Pixy. It's like war wounds battled up, but a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio reel is what I look for when I'm jerkbait fishing. It kind of helps keep the right pace when you're picking up the slack. I mean, you're not really moving the bait at all with the reel, with the exception of right at the beginning of the cast or the end of the cast. But 10-pound fluorocarbon. I pretty much exclusively use fluorocarbon. Some guys, when it gets really late in the year, they'll go to mono, just because fluorocarbon will start to get a little brittle once you get below freezing temperatures. So some guys will go to mono, but I stay with fluorocarbon. Basically 8 to 12 pound test, depending on what I'm trying to get out of the bait and the cover that's in the lake. But typically 10 pound, 90% of the time for me. Some scenarios where I'm trying to get the bait a little bit deeper.
Welcome to Bass University TV, an online video training course where you'll learn champion bass fishing techniques from pro anglers Pete Glusek, Mike Iaconelli, and their talented special guests. From on the water to in the classroom, you'll learn sound techniques and strong fundamental bass fishing skills. Watch hours of video content on multiple topics at your own pace for a low monthly fee. Cancel at any time. Information is power in the sport of fishing, so learn from the very best. Subscribe to Bass University TV today.